Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Breaking Even with Al Paton on your official SuperCoach AFL podcast feed. Al Paton here with my good friend Patch. Now, we did have a third host last week, but Tarquin, he did give some good advice, but he also mentioned Dylan Moore again, and we can't be having that.
Can't be having that. No, it's delighted to be here. I'm happy to step up and, I mean, maybe I'll be giving the bad advice this week as well. Who knows? We'll see.
It'll be a solo pod next week.
Delighted to be here.
Great to have you with me. We are getting into, it's round 9, Patch.
How? How is that? That's not allowed. It was round 3 2 weeks ago.
Exactly. We had upgrade season yet. I'll keep waiting, thinking that's coming up soon.
Yeah. Am I out of trades yet?
Yeah, actually, that's probably a more important question. We'll get into all that, of course, and like, subscribe on all your podcast feeds, and, of course, watch every week on the Code Sports YouTube channel. SuperCoach Plus is where you get all your break-evens. We'll get into all that, some price score projections, which are very interesting, and of course your live scores every week during the games, which is always fun when you say don't have Max Gawn in your team and his score jumps about 30 points every time you refresh it.
Yeah.
But it is good to see.
It is. Give us a rating as well if you're on Spotify or on the apps that allow you to rate us nicely. And while you're there, rate the lair, because then we get Simeon Thomas Wilson with the peroxide.
Exactly. So, yeah, don't forget to check out the Lair every week on a Monday, and then we get our show, and then the live show on a Thursday night when the teams come out. But, Patch, we know, every Supercoach knows managing injuries is a key to success. This is the Injury Report, proudly brought to you by HBF, your health dream team. Plenty of names here. We'll get through them quickly. Cam McKenzie at the Hawks has a broken hand, had some surgery. He's out for 1 to 2 weeks, which might help the job security of Henry Hustwaite, who's the top rookie target this week. Hayden Young, this is a big one at Freo, 10 to 12 weeks, another hamstring for him, so might be some changes at the Dockers. At Geelong, Mitch Nevitt is a test. Tom Stewart is a test. See what happens.
What's new?
Yeah, exactly. Bo Allen got a week suspension after he finally got into the team for West Coast. There's going to be a lot of changes at Collingwood. They're going to rest Pendlebury, DeGoey, Maynard, and Myercheck is out as well. And Clayton Oliver, we think, will be back this week, but we'll just wait and see what the teams look like on Thursday night.
Yeah, we hope he's okay. Jordan Ridley at the Bombers is going to miss 8 weeks with a hamstring yet again. Taylor's oldest time, with a bunch of other injuries at the Bombers, with Harrison Jones and Gresham out. And then we've got Caldwell Shield available, Matt Guelphy's available, Nick Cox is back playing. What does that do to the team? What does that mean for Sardell Hawley? We don't know. Travis Boak is out with a back injury. Jeremy McGovern is concussed, so we'll miss a week. Liam Jones is out for 3 to 4 weeks. We don't know what that means for Jed Buslinger's sub-vest capabilities. And then Mateus Philippou is a test after being in and then out again last week.
Yeah, that's a watch for me because I like Hugh Boxall, but then if Philippou comes in, we'll see. That's a wrap on this week's Injury Report. Thanks to HBF. Make the smart move. Join HBF, your health dream team. Patch, a regular segment is Fallen Primos, of course, very relevant when we are looking to upgrade. I think there's one clear standout this week. I mean, he was last week too. If you got him for about the 460K mark, well done. Chad Warner, well done. We're talking about, scored 140. Now he's 488K. I mean, that's still very cheap for a player who I think will still drop your occasional 60 or 70. Yep. He's liable to do that, but when he can get the big scores on the other end, that price is still looking pretty juicy. Yeah,
we saw last year that, he's frustrating to own for long stretches, but as a forward, you put up with it because he's going to be scoring, 140s, 130s more frequently than your Dylan Moore types. So we'll take it. He's great value this week as well, getting him for under 500K for a guy that's, pumped out 2 big tons in a row.
And he's getting big CBA numbers the last few weeks at the Swans, where obviously earlier in the year he was playing a fair bit forward where he got that DPP. Yep. So the sort of newer role has coincided with these scores, so hopefully.
And also coincided with the contract being signed as well, which he's spoken about and said that, he feels in a much better place now that he signed that contract. So, it looks like it's translating on the field, so fingers crossed it continues to do so.
Anyone else that you like on this list? I mean, Rowan Marshall, very cheap at 471K. I don't know how many rucks we can fit into our SuperCoach teams.
Got any more flexes hiding away there? He's very cheap, very good, but I wouldn't be, unless you got Matt Flynn at R2, God forbid, maybe then he's an option, but otherwise I don't know how you're fitting another ruck in, especially when I really like Josh Dunkley this week. Jordan Dawson's a great shout as well in the midfield. Zach Merritt's still under 600K and could be worth a look. There's a lot of guys. Isaac Rankine as well. I think if you don't have him, I'd almost be bringing him in ahead of Chad Warner, just because I think Warner will drop those poorer scores, and Isaac's shown that if he's playing pure midfield, then he's not going to have the only reason he'd have a dud score is because he gets subbed out against Essendon at 3/4 time.
Yeah, so for someone like me who didn't start him, doesn't have him, that's sort of helped keep his price a little bit in check. He's actually, I think he's $1,000 cheaper than he was at the start of the year.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much longer I can go without him, especially with someone we didn't mention on the injury report. Matt Crouch is out for, I think, 6 weeks with a hip injury.
Yeah.
So, you think that really opens up that midfield time for Isaac. And, I think I'm going to look at doing exactly that. Maybe pass on Chad. Might cost me an extra trade, but I think it's a bit of a philosophical question. Do you go for the guys who you are really confident will be top of their line, like maybe a Zach Merritt type or a Rankine, versus grabbing the value when it's there in someone like Chad Warner?
Well, I think with Rankine, I think the value is there because he's, $520K. I think that's possibly as cheap as he'll be for the rest of the season. And you'll lock him in as a top 6, possibly top 3 forward. Chad Warner, you'd think is a lock for top 6, so I don't think there's if you can only do Chad Warner with 2 trades, then I think that's fine. But if you've got the option between the two of them, I'd be going to Isaac Rankine, all day, every day on that front as well. Jack Sinclair,
he's the other one
on the list that he could still fall further, break even at 131 as you've got down. But I think 533K for a guy that's a Monty to be a top 6 defender, I think he's good buying this week. You don't need to wait that extra week to bring him in.
Yeah, he's certainly on my radar maybe this week or next week. I think they have Carlton this week, the Saints, and then the Eagles, so you'd be definitely trying to get him in before that game. And as you say, he'll probably be around this price again next week, so whenever it fits your trade plans. But I think he's definitely someone to
a lot of people looking at Dane Zorko this week in the back line. I'd wait until Kitty Coleman is back.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Kitty played really well in the VFL this week. You want to see how they coexist together, what happens in that side. Kitty could start at the sub, could be subbed out because they've got North or Richmond this week.
North, I think. Yeah.
North. Someone who's not particularly good and may well, be 10 goals up at 3/4 time. So that might not give us the information we want, but I'm just intrigued. I wouldn't be touching either of them just yet.
Zorko's been, maybe I'm feeling a little bit burned by him because I didn't start him. I got on after those 2 big scores. Then he had another one in round 3. And then since then he's been fine, but just around that 100 sort of mark. And last week, he probably wouldn't have even got to the mid-90s if it wasn't for some real just great junk pig action in the last 5 minutes of the game where he had about half a dozen marks and chipping it around just to get his Supercoach score up. So, it's not someone I'd be rushing to get in if I don't have him.
No, not at all.
Some quick rookie roulette. We do still have some rookies in our teams. I'll throw a few names at you. If you had to play one of these guys on field, Levi Ashcroft or Henry Hustwaite?
Levi.
Yeah, I think Henry's had his good matchups, so I like him as a rookie pickup this week, but maybe not so much for the on-field scores. Caden Cleary or Elijah Hewitt?
I really like Elijah. He's been super, and I've managed to get his good scores on field. With the Eagles playing Richmond, I'd be taking Elijah Hewitt as a chance to get a couple of goals out of the midfield.
Max Hall or Clay Hall?
Well, whichever one is playing, which at this stage, Max Hall. But yeah.
Max has been good since I traded him out a couple of weeks ago, 80s and 70s the last couple of weeks, so I'd keep backing him in. But we think Clay is a chance to maybe get back in this week. Had a huge game in the waffle, but who knows what's going on at West Coast selection.
The less I have to do with it, the better.
Elijah Sardis or Xavier Lindsay?
Xavier Lindsay. I'm very concerned about Elijah Sardis's place in the team this week. We've mentioned in the HBF Injury Report that there's a bunch of guys that Essendon bringing out. Jai Caldwell's back. Will Setterfield's probably not losing his spot. Does that mean Sardis comes out? Does Sardis become the sub? I'm very concerned about that situation. So anyone but him.
If you had to, in defence, I hope no one's in this situation, but if you had to play a Jed Bustlinger or a Matt Carroll on field, do you like either of those picks?
Adjust your trades here. Pick neither of them. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, hopefully no one's going to play either of those guys on field. Now we'll get into the questions, of course, the real guts of the show. Keep an eye out for the tweet on X and all our official Supercoach social accounts on the Tuesday to get your questions in, and there's plenty of good ones here, Patch. Some hard ones, I have to say. It's my first thought when I was looking through them. It's a tricky game sometimes. But straight off the bat, Nigel wants to know Noah Anderson, Josh Dunkley or Jack Sinclair, if you wanted to bring one of those guys in this week, all around the same price, around that 520K mark.
Yeah, I think all three of them are really good shouts.
Yeah.
I've got Noah Anderson. I bought him in just before Gather Round, and he's been pretty good this year. He's averaging 109 or 108.4 if you want to get very technical with it. But he seems to have, last year every week James Clements on the podcast was bemoaning that he'd drop a 60 away from home. He's cut that out of his game this year. So he's, floors of 90, 95, and that's fantastic. That's what we want from a primo. He's looking the goods. He can still do those spike scores. Haven't had one in a few weeks, but I think he's great buying and a very good point of difference. He's in just 8% of teams, so I really like him. I do really like Josh Dunkley as well. A guy that's been top 8 for the last 3 seasons at 520k is incredible buying. I don't think we'll see him at the 120, 115 average again, but I've still got faith that he'll get up to 110 for the rest of the year. Jack Sinclair's very good, as we've spoken about as well. I don't know how to split them, is the answer. Maybe your buy structure might help your answer there, because we're now getting annoyingly close to the buys, and that's something that we do need to start thinking about when trading players in. So if one of them fits your buy structure really well, I'd go with them. I'm voting with my feet. I've got Anderson, I've got Sinclair, so they're the two I'd probably have at this stage. But yeah, I don't think you'll go super wrong with any of them. Dunkley has a great run.
Yeah, I'd probably pick Dunkley of those 3, but yeah, I think you're right. They're all good shouts. I mean, maybe Sinclair you could hold off another week or 2 and you'd still be able to get him at a good price. So
yeah, that was a lot of words for me to say I don't know.
I mean, they're all good, so I don't think you're going to go too wrong. But
I mean, Dunkley's got North Melbourne this week, Melbourne next week, and then Hawthorn and Essendon. So he's in 3 of his next 4 are quite good from a midfield scoring perspective. So I think that run could be really lucrative.
Yeah, I like that. Interesting question from Schultze asking, which rookies should we have traded out by now? So I went back to my trade history and looked through who I have traded out, and some of them I was like, who? I don't remember this guy. But I've traded out Sam Davidson, Mitch Nevitt, Nathan O'Driscoll, of course, got injured after making a bunch of money. Sada, so I got rid of. Angus Hasty I started, and he didn't last very long. And Finn O'Sullivan as well. And I'm sort of in this position now where the rookies I've got left are either playing on field and I really don't want to get rid of them, like an Ashcroft or a Zach Reed, or they're sort of stinking up on the bench, not really doing much and not worth much in terms of a trade. So any of those names ring a bell for you?
Yes, I mean, certainly some of them I think, as you mentioned, the Ashcrofts and Reeds and the guys that are on field are the ones we don't want to be getting rid of. It's kind of a hard question because it's hard to know without knowing who Schultze started, who they should have got rid of. But I think you look at the guys like, Sam Davidson probably should have gone by now. Luke Traynor, most people will have got rid of, but now break-even's reset. You keep him a bit longer. But I think the general crux of it is you want to have traded out the guys that have stopped making money. Yep. So if they've still got more capacity to make money, you keep them. If you've got guys on the bench that are deadwood, they're the ones you really want to try and get rid of. So you want to try and have as few of them as possible. And I feel like I've been pretty good at that so far. So I've still got guys that are slowly bubbling along, but you don't want a bench full of Tom Gross, Elijah Sardas, if he gets dropped, Christian Moraes. Yeah. You just want to make sure the rookies you do have are making cash, and if they're playing, then there's still a chance for a spike score, even if Finn O'Sullivan lost some cash and has now made it back. I think you just want to prioritise the guys that are playing where you can.
And also, the other factor to consider at this stage of the year is if you're playing them on field, like a Levi or a guy we'll get to in a second, and who are you bringing in? If you're bringing in maybe someone who's a little bit more dodgy, do you then have to play, maybe I'd have to push a Caden Cleary onto the field instead of Levi or something if I'm trading him out to make these other moves. So you want to be keeping an eye on that as well, and don't expose yourself too much, especially if you wanting to rely on playing Neil Erasmus or someone on field who's could be the sub, could be playing Waffle
or
Sardis or someone like that.
Yeah, you look at a Henry Hustwaite this week. I think he's fine on field this week and next week as well. After that, I wouldn't want to be relying on him to be on field because he might not be in the team. Like, he's still the best downgrade option this week. I'm still not sold on his job security long term. If Mackenzie's back and Nash is back, he's a downgrade option. He's in my side, but I'm certainly not counting on him being on field should the worst happen.
Yeah, beyond the next couple of weeks. Well, in that same similar sort of bracket, what about Sam Powell-Pepper? I know it's a touchy subject for you, but he's been an amazing rookie pick. He's up to 397k. Did drop a 69 last week. Could you get rid of him if that enables an to you to get an upgrade, and you can do something with that money. I think it's about $90K to get Chad Warner. Or, is he one of those guys that you just want to be keeping while he's scoring okay and you can play him on field and hopefully make even more money?
It's kind of a horses for courses thing. I don't think he's the Levi Ashcroft or Zach Reid mould of guy you have to keep. I think Sam Powell-Pepper can go if he gets you the upgrade you need this week, can go if it helps you do something else on your side. If you can keep him, keep him. But don't feel, we can't get too attached to these rookies. They'll have to go eventually. It's like, raising someone on the farm. You don't want to get too attached to the little lamb because, you will take it out the back one day and fire it up. It's a cruel mistress, this Supercoach. You can't get too attached.
So Scutters asked specifically, is it worth trading out Powell-Pepper and Matt Flynn if it gets you Max Gawn and Huswaite? He's sort of happy with all these other primos.
Well, we're going to have a lot of Max Gawn questions, aren't we? Should we just rip it open and talk about whether or not we should be getting Max Gawn?
Yes.
Should we be getting Max Gawn?
Sean has asked, let's talk about the big three, Bont, Butters, Gawn. He's talking about trading Chera to get one of those. It's just...
I feel so poor. I just feel so poor when people are talking about, I can get Gawn in or Butters in or Bont in, and I'm like, how?
I think the sensible play is to trade out the rookies, move on a Moraes and maybe it's a Kako or someone like that, and get a Warner and just, boost your overall premium numbers, get a rookie off the field, all that kind of thing, rather than trading a Chera to one of these top dog midfielders, because you're sort of just replacing one premium scorer with another. Obviously, you're going to get more points from a Butters than you would get from Chera, but it means you're still playing one of those rookies on field. But the problem is when these guys are scoring like they're scoring, it's really hard. But history shows us someone like Isaac Heaney last year came out and averaged about 150 for the first 5 or 6 rounds. Probably Matt Rowell did too. But it's just so hard to keep it up. I guess
unless you're Gary Ablett Jr. or Tom Rockcliffe that one season, it's just not going to. You can't maintain the rage all year.
And Max Gawn did play Richmond, which he scores 170 against them every year, and then West Coast. We knew that was going to be. I probably didn't know it was going to go quite as one-sided as it did, but that was always a very friendly matchup. We just know how good Max is, but. Yeah, I think my stance is still that you don't pull your team apart to get these guys. If you can get 22, 23 primos in the end by round 12 or 13 or something, you're going to be better off than someone who has Gawn, but it still has to play a couple of rookies on field at the same time.
Yeah, and we look at this instance as well where you're trading out if you're trading out a Flynn this week to get to Gawn, you could trade. If Flynn's in your flex, you can trade Flynn to Chad Warner, and you've got nearly 200K to, if you then hit a boost, you might be able to upgrade another rookie to another premium. You might be able to squeeze in a Dawson or a Dunkley or a Petrarca or Rankine or whoever else it is. You might be able to trade in someone else. So I think, I think as far up as I'd go this week if I'm trading would be to a Zach Merritt at 580, just under 600K. From memory, I don't think... I think you're right that the conventional wisdom still holds true.
I'm clinging to it.
but it's also very fun to have one of the one of the top dogs, especially if you can squeeze into a Bont or a Butters that are still really big points of difference. It's so much fun. And, as much as Supercoach is a game of numbers and crunching it and trying to get the best team you possibly can... Also got to have fun with it. And, if you're playing for league and you really need to get back on track, sure. If you just want to throw a Hail Mary because you feel like you're a fair way out of the ranks, I still think the best way to climb up the ranks is get your rookies off the field. But if you're going to have fun with it, don't feel constrained by that conventional wisdom. But I think your team will get better faster if you do.
The thing is, I guess, that we do want to get these guys at some stage, and you just think, well, just wait maybe till the buys or wait till, their price comes down a little bit. And Butters last week started like an absolute house on fire, then finished with, I think he got 109. That's not going to make a huge difference to his price, but it just shows that you could get a Warner or someone who can do better than that.
But even at this stage, a 109 would still cause his price to drop, 70, 80K. And
he could be 650 or, closer to 600 in a few weeks' time. But then you look at Gawn, he's 687K, his break-even is 32. Supercoach Plus projects he will be 781,000 in about round 15.
That feels illegal. That feels...
I don't know. I have to go back and look up some numbers. I don't know if anybody's ever been 781,000.
Oh, it'd be Gary Ablett areas.
Yeah, it'd be the only one, surely.
Yeah, who knows? It's terrifying. But anyway, that's expensive. If you're not getting on this week, you're not getting on for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But I still think, as much as it sucks not owning him, you're better off just.
And imagine you paid that
elsewhere.
money. Remember, was it last year Gawn had that game where he got injured and scored 0?
Yeah.
Not wishing that on anybody, but like these things can happen. And if you, paying that.
Only takes one game of 90 and the price comes plummeting down. As much as it's hard to say it and hard to believe it, the best course of action is to wait. But if you've got, say, we've got questions about Clayton Oliver as well. Adam Chera was mentioned.
Yeah.
Would you trade out either of those guys to get to one of the big dogs, or do you still trade out one of the big dogs and then like a dead rookie to get enough cash?
I actually think, having everything we just said, I actually think, yes, I would be prepared to trade an Oliver or a Chera, just because I don't think they're going to be top 8, top 10, top 12 midfielders. Those guys in the 400K range, it'll be interesting next year when we're getting a long way ahead to, how many do we pick? And there were so many good ones this year. But they're really hard to project because, I had this option a few weeks ago if I had to trade one of them to get Dacos, and I went with Finn O'Sullivan to trade out on the back of 3 sort of sub-80 scores. And since then, he's put up 3 absolute massive scores, and it's just killing me watching him because I love him as a player. And I really wish he was still in my team. And, I could have traded one of these other guys. But then I was also thinking about trading Will Ashcroft, and I'm glad I didn't do that.
Yep.
It just, and that's why I'm a bit wary about getting another one in Warner this week because, they're so hard to predict when they're going to go off and when they're going to drop a poor one. So I think it's a balance. Like, fine to have a few of them, but you don't want to be overloaded with too many. And in the end of the day, if you can get up to a Rankine or a Lockie Neal or a Merritt type who you can be confident is going to be putting out those sort of 110 scores every week, they're the guys that you really want. And maybe, fill out your F5 and 6 or your M8 and 9 with some of these sort of 400K guys. But, you don't want to stack your team with them.
No, but I think they've also done a very good job of keeping rookies off field because we've had some stinkers this year. If you're able to keep someone averaging 90 like Clayton Oliver or 95 on your field, that's better than a 55 from, Sam Davidson throughout the year or whatever it is. So I think starting them was the right call. I think keeping them is still the right call. But again, it's very fun to just go up to a big dog. And, if Clayton Oliver's not back this week, then I'd be trading him out. Yeah. Even if you kept him that 1 week, I still think it's better to move him on. And whether or not that's up to a big dog, that's between you and God, honestly.
It probably comes down to your other trades. Like if you can trade, like I could trade Lindsay and Kako and get Huswaite, for example, or another rookie and Warner, I'd be doing that rather than trading out a guy who's averaging around 100, like a Chero or even Oliver if he's picked. But if you can't do that, or you've already got Warner and you're fine with your rookies for the moment, and it's just a matter of timing. I think eventually I probably will trade a Chero, and maybe he is the way I have to try and get to a Bont or something maybe. Yeah. But I'm thinking that'll maybe during the buys.
Yeah.
That's sort of what that's for. At this stage, you're better off getting the rookies off. Okay, we better move on to some other questions. Yeah. Shane wants to know, talking about Kitty Coleman, who we touched on briefly, and Darcy Parish as potential upside picks would be good. When do you think they'll come back in? And I'll chuck Callum Mills into that bracket as well, because I think these are interesting guys if they come in. It's a good time of year to get someone at 260K.
Who could average 105.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you've got Parish. He's 480K. He's listed as 1 week away with a calf, but I don't know. He's sort of been 1 or 2 weeks for quite a while. And then Mills has gone back to, I noticed, the TBC again on the Sydney injury list. So I'm not sure what's happening with him, but he's 350K as well. So, they're all...
I think for all of them, I'm in the basket if I want to see it before I even think about picking them. Coleman, we've seen him in the VFL. If he comes in, there'll be, as we said on the layer this week, there'll be bold punters that go for him this week. You could be rewarded. They've got North Melbourne. He could just pig off half back. They could be 10 goals up at three-quarter time and he could get subbed off on 80. So I think I'll be waiting to see.
Could start as the sub to ease him back in.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you hold on him. He's the first one back, probably back this week if they can squeeze him in. But I want to see what the role's like, what the point output is like. Darcy Parish, again, same, was cheap last year and still just was pretty putrid from a scoring perspective. Goodness knows what Essendon's midfield looks like when he's back in there. Have they evolved to survive without him? Will he score? I'm not remotely interested at this stage, and we've got, he's got 2 games after he gets back to prove me wrong. And Callum Mills, who knows how far off he is with whatever injury he currently has.
Yeah, exactly. The only other thing to mention with these guys is just to keep it in mind with our defences, because a lot of people defences are nearly finished, or you may be looking at bringing in a Zorko or a Sinclair in the next week or two. You probably want to have a spot for Kitty if he comes in and scores 2 tons.
Yep.
You want to be able to get him in there somewhere. Caleb Daniel, so interesting. He's sort of in that 450k range. We talked about the Chera and Oliver types. Lauren asking if he's worth a trade if you can get him up to a primo. I think he's sort of plateaued. He's like nearly 200k. I think his break-even's in the 90s, so he's probably just going to stay there. I don't see him losing money. He's just scoring 89s every week.
Yep.
I know there's some North fans that are starting to question, is he really helping that much? But unless he's dropped, I'm not really worrying about him.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, I'd trade the other guys first, probably. Sinclair, is his role changed? Todd asking. He's cheap, or should you spend up for Whitfield? I still like Sinclair. Last week had 20 touches at 100% efficiency. He didn't get any centre bounces. We like him at halfback. I think last week was just a bit of a weird game where the Dockers just couldn't get their hands on the ball at all in the in the centre square, so there wasn't that much for Sinclair to do. But yeah, I still think he's very confident he'll be in the sort of top 5 defenders. Another North player, Patch, I know you've been interested in, Riley Hardiman. Now, we're scratching around for cheapies this week. Hugh Boxall I like. He was good game 1, but reluctant to go after one game, especially with maybe Philippou coming back. People were talking about Neil Erasmus, but he hasn't been actually picked for about a month. We're hoping he maybe gets a chance this week. But Hardiman is there. He's 190k, scored 76 last week, has a nice role for North. Is he someone we could potentially bring in?
Yeah, I really like him as an option this week. The 190k is really difficult and might cost you the upgrade you want. But if you can squeeze him in, I always prefer guys that are playing. He's playing. He's, looks like he's got a decent role in that side. I'd really like him as an option.
Question, one word question here from Nigel. Saligo.
No.
I think he's made, I hope he's talking about potentially trading him out. He's another one in that 400k range. Again, just shows the frustration you can get with these guys. Started with 4 tons, then 4 sub-tons, and he's actually lost money from his starting value. So, I think he's one you definitely could move on. We'll finish with some quick-fire questions here. Matt has asked 4, but we should be able to answer them all pretty quickly. Is Sean Manor an option? I did look him up. He scored 3 tons in a row, but I was thinking, if he's around the sort of 300k mark, you could consider him. He's 445.
No.
Yeah, so rules him out. Best downgrade option after Hustwaite? Wait for teams, I think is the answer.
Yeah, I think the answer is to wait for teams. It's not looking great.
Will Lorenz is one we haven't mentioned, scored 70-something for Port last week.
Yeah, he's played 1 game. We did this with Christian Moraes. We've been on this ride before. I want to see a second game before I go near Will Lorenz.
Joe Fonte's another one who I think he's a good chance to hold his spot, but he's a defender. He's won 60k again, so a bit more expensive off one game. Yeah, it's tricky.
You make 30k going Connor Stone to him. He's taking the Connor Stone role. But anyway, it's looking a bit bleak. I think we just hold, Hustwaite's the option, and then I don't really like any of them aside from that. Hustwaite, Hardiman are the 2 that I'd be bringing in pretty confidently, and outside of that,
I like Boxall, but you'd want to see him named probably, even on field. I think Saints play again early in the round, so
they're Friday night.
Yeah, so we'll see. We don't have to wait for extended benches or anything, but he's one I'm keeping a close eye on. I mean, maybe Carlton picks Lucas Camperali or someone comes from the clouds like that to help us out. Another of his third of his 4th question: Warner a must-have? Yes or no?
Not a must-have, but he's pretty close.
Yep. I can't say he's a must-have because I may not get him this week, but I think, he's a very good trade-in. And last one, is it too late to get Ned Long? He's now 390,000. I don't hate the idea. It would be handy at this time if we got a Kitty type, someone in the 200, 300k range that we could just ride for a few weeks. But I don't know that he's the one. He's made a heap of money already, and just looking at those Supercoach Plus price projections, he's projected to make about another 30 or 40k, and then he'll top out. So it's not really worth it, is it?
Yeah,
he's scoring well.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself what are you bringing him in for. If it's to make cash, no. If it's to be a primo, no. If it's to be kind of a placeholder until you jump up to someone else, maybe. But I don't know. It doesn't spark joy.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do that, I don't hate the theory behind it, but you'd want to find someone who could at least make you maybe $100,000 in 3 or 4 weeks, and then you trade them out and you've sort of made some money in the process, because we are using potentially 2 trades on a Ned Long just to get, some sort of 80s and 90s for a few weeks.
Yep.
I don't think that's worth it.
Yep, and then there's the one last question from Nathan. Is it okay to hold this week and not do any trades?
Yeah, well, you were talking on last week's show about doing this.
Yes, and then I didn't.
No. How did that go?
Well, Clayton Oliver was out, and then I panicked, and then I decided to try and loop Sam Davidson, and that didn't work because he got subbed out and played badly, and then I didn't have anyone else to trade out to trade Clayton Oliver up to someone, so I traded Levi Ashcroft out and got Nick Dacos in, and Dacos scored less than Levi Ashcroft, and I should have just done no trades, but... Yeah, so the answer is yes. If you feel like not trading, I can recommend not trading because it's better than trading sometimes.
I just think, if no rookies turn up, then that's probably viable. It's just at this time of year, you really do want to be improving your team each week if you can, because other people might be grabbing those extra primos and sort of getting ahead of us. But
your priority 1 is improving your team. Your priority 2 is not making your team worse. And not trading sometimes doesn't make your team worse, which means it's better to do than trading. So... Yeah, yes, it's perfectly viable to not trade this week. You don't want to be doing too many weeks of them, but...
No, exactly. To finish off, how many trades have you actually used? How many you got left?
20-ish.
Yeah, I'm down to 20. I've actually used a boost on my trades that I'm playing around with at the moment, and that takes me down to 20, which is half the trades gone.
Yes.
It's a bit scary.
I'm in the same boat. I'm like 23 before I do any trades this week, and only want to do 2, but... Well, yeah, we'll see.
Last question from me. Would you get Chad Warner with 2 trades or Isaac Rankine with 3?
Chad with 2.
Damn it. Okay. Thanks, Patch, for coming on despite that last answer. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Remember, join us on Thursday night for the live team show. There'll be a lot of interest, especially in seeing which rookies actually get a game, which will dictate a lot of our trades, but plenty of time before then to play around with options. So good luck with that, and we'll be back very soon.
Catch you later.